Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. I got Diamond and Master Peg with me. Master Peg is going to be heading up CZ. He'll be talking a bit later on in the stream, but feel free to say hi now if you want.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the AMA. Got a good one for you.
Yeah, so I figured today what we'll probably talk the most about is a potential bomb relaunch. Of course, we can talk about anything else that you guys want to talk about, but that's probably the big one that has a lot of people concerned, or people have their inputs on how that should work, or if we should do it or not do it. So let's talk about that, and then we can kind of just see where we progress from there. So let's share my screen. So I brought this up in the bombshell. This is something that was mentioned in the community. As soon as we launched CZ and we saw, the success of the tax and, the unwillingness for people to sell under peg, we saw how well that worked. And right away, people in the community said, let's get a tax on bomb, right? And there's a lot of requests for that. But, of course, we can't just, change code after it's already been deployed. So I kind of just put it to the side and, I really was against it at first. As time's passed and, CZ's really proven that the tax is working very well. And as bomb peg hasn't pegged despite, P-Hub, we took 550,000 bomb right off the market with P-Hub launch. We launched nodes, which put a bunch of buy pressure on bomb almost at the exact same time. And we still didn't get past 0.9. So, I'm not trying to be negative, but, we all want consistent peg. The community wanted a tax on bomb, so that requires a relaunch. There's a couple other advantages that come with a relaunch. We've learned a lot from launching CZ. I mean, CZ really had such a great feature set that I'm not even sure I want to change much from what was launched with CZ if for a potential bomb relaunch. But definitely open to suggestions and comments regarding it. So I guess let's get right into it. So there's a couple things we've got to figure out together as a community. And that is, what a migration from bomb V1 to V2 would look like. I've got some really good ideas of how that would look and how it kind of makes sense to look. And I want to talk about this in depth because a lot of people are concerned with some of the things that I've said. When those things that I said, I guess let's just get right into it. So, basically, if we were to do a relaunch, I was thinking that, we'll first have, in the bombshell, I pointed out that somewhere in here, basically like the first priority is to make sure that any existing bomb holders and, any investors in bomb, whether they started investing a week ago or since the very beginning, we need to make them whole. We need to make sure that they're, happy with their investment. And, this is a large reason for the relaunch, right? Is because, people have invested in bomb and currently it's not as healthy as we'd like it to be. So, we need to, maybe take a drastic step and, make a major transition to a V2. And, I think I figured out a way that we can give full value to our existing bomb holders, but still have a new protocol that's very strong. So basically, what I said here is, what does a bomb relaunch look like? So we want to maximize value for all bomb asset holders. So what this means is being able to trade bomb in for a new bomb at a 1.0 peg value. So, regardless what peg is at, you're going to get full value for your bomb. Bomb doesn't spend much time over 1.0. So there's not many people that could have bought bomb that would lose in this situation. So I think that's pretty fair.
Fantastic opportunity to buy.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Oh, it looks like it has been bought up a little bit.
Yep. Actually, a huge chunk last night. Somebody bought up a lot of nodes.
Okay, cool. So let's see how the node lottery's looking. Change the topic real quick. Koya current leader's got quite a few. What do I have none? Oh, I'm in the wrong account. That's why. Okay. So we got a question here. So there's a lot of specifics related to a migration that we should probably discuss after we figure out the major aspects. I mean, just to touch on nodes real quick, just because that's one place where, funds are kind of locked that they can't be taken out of immediately. Like, I mean, I think a worst case scenario for node holders is that, you'll be able to trade your BOM for new BOM at 1.0 peg. So essentially, if you bought peg, if you bought BOM at 0.6 peg, you're already up over 50%, getting to 1.0 from there. So, worst case scenario, you just have to claim your rewards over time and, get your funds out that way and then convert it over to the new BOM as you get them. Unless something better is thought of, like that's kind of like the worst case scenario of what would happen there.
Not that bad, actually. As a worst case scenario.
Yeah. We got another question about nodes, and we got new potential investor here. How does V2 attract me? Introducing tax sounds more targeted to existing investors. Well, no, I mean, so basically, like, I'm not sure what, how much of the backstory but BOM money has no taxes under peg, and that has proven very difficult to maintain peg. And as soon as one person decides to take profit, and especially if they're a bigger wallet, right, we drop peg, and then other people start to get worried, and then they sell, and then a bank run starts because there's no penalty for selling under peg. So, and also there's bad actors that come in and they'll just try to manipulate peg, and a lot of that's it's a lot more difficult or expensive when there's an under peg tax in. So yeah, so someone just responded to you. As a new investor, you want more sustainable peg, so it will benefit you too. That's pretty much the exact answer there. If we're stable over peg, then our share token is more expensive, which means our farms are paying more. It just means the whole ecosystem is healthier. And CZ is a great example. It launched right in the middle of, crypto winter. It's, crypto couldn't have been doing any worse when CZ launched. And, also definitely looks like there's some bad actors that were trying to ensure CZ wasn't a success. And despite their actions, CZ still got all 4 tokens right near peg. And, it's doing better than any other Team Fork that's launched anytime recently. I can say that much. So I mean, some of those mechanics are definitely proving to work quite well. And, BOM has obviously was the very first Team Fork. We have a bigger following, than CZ. The name is better known. So, I think having those mechanics and then combine that with, the history of BOM, I think CZ is going to do exceptional also. Right. But I think BOM relaunched with the CZ mechanics would really fly not only out of the gate, but long-term as well. It comes with a lot of other advantages too. Like, the BOM, for one, like BOM spending so much time under peg, we didn't really get great value out of the B share emissions, the reward emissions. What I mean by that is the reward farms run for 12 months. So ideally we want B share to be as valuable as possible during that 12-month period so that, our farms can attract a lot of investors. The people that are farming our LPs are earning as much as possible. And we're like really getting great value out of those reward emissions over those 12 months. But we spent so much time under peg that we've emitted so many B shares at a low value that, it makes it difficult for B share to get extremely valuable again. And that's something that we can address with the relaunch. Right. So let's just touch on that right now. So what would happen with B shares, with a relaunch, right? So I talked in the community about this, and what seems to make sense to me, and of course I'm like always open for feedback from the community. I've already received quite a bit on this, but so I was thinking that B share would be tradable to the new shares, swappable to the new shares at a 100-to-1 ratio. So if you've got 100 B shares, you'd get 1 new share in the new protocol, and that has a lot of people concerned. But when you actually talk through it, or look through what are the alternatives and the pros and cons of all of them, the more I think about it, the more that makes sense to have that 100-to-1 ratio. And I know there's a lot of people that have bought a lot of B shares that, are going to be concerned with that. But I think it's really important to realize, like, what happens if we do nothing is that probably BOM doesn't peg very often. And if it does, it's probably going to lose it. And, it's B share. I don't see it getting extremely valuable if we do nothing. Right. We cannot trade B share to the new share at a 1-to-1 ratio because there's so many B shares in existence that have been emitted at a low B share price that, our new share tokens, it'd be impossible to get them to have any value if we started with 40,000 B shares that people were able to pick up for $15 a piece, right? So that would make the new launch fail right out of the gate. So now you know why those two options don't work. But the 100-to-1 ratio, the reason that does work and that does give you value is because the share token, for one, like this is still in the idea stage. So we can set up emissions on the share token any way that we choose, meaning that we can have 70,000 total B shares or whatever our new shares are called. We could have 100,000, we could have 20,000, we could have as many as we want, right? So that's something that we can decide. And the amount that we are going to emit overall is going to be a big factor in determining their value. As well, we can have the share farms run for 2 years like we do on CZ, or we could have them run for 3 or 4 years, or we could do 1 year, right? So there's a lot of options there. But what I'm thinking so far, and again, I'm open to feedback, is we do a 100-to-1 ratio on the swap. We run the new farms for 2 years to give it a longer runway. And we maybe have a little bit less of emissions than what CZ has. So CZ emits exactly 100 per day. What that did is I think it's a pretty good number for a new protocol. I think for a bomb relaunch, we could probably do with a little bit less. And that's what that's going to do is it's going to help to keep the share valuable, especially out of the gate. Because I feel with CZ out of the gate, I think if we had enough eyes on the project and the market wasn't doing what the market was doing and tanking like it was, I feel like we could have got enough investors that we could have handled the 100 share emissions per day. But because there wasn't enough participation in my eyes, the share tokens were being sold faster than they were being bought by new participants. And that's what, the share token was pretty stable in the 20,000 range. And then it started, dropping with the emissions. And, I think with lower emissions, I feel like it would have held a higher value for much longer. And, with all the awareness on bomb, I feel that if the emissions are a little bit lower, we probably could have the buy pressure in to stabilize the share price quite a lot higher. But just to throw some numbers at you guys. So for anyone concerned about the 100-to-1 ratio, what's B share at right now? It's at $15. So at 100-to-1 ratio, essentially you're paying $1,500 for one of the new shares. Now with CZ, people were buying shares around launch time for around $20,000. The difference here is that, we have a 40,000 circulating supply. So with a 100-to-1 ratio, assuming every single person swaps every single B share, we have 397 new shares on the new bomb that didn't exist for CZ. So of course, that's additional potential selling pressure. But, anybody that's participated in a new Tomb Fork launch or participated in the bomb launch or CZ launch, having share tokens early on is extremely valuable if you know what to do with them. If you're not an active investor, you're not, if you're not familiar with what to do during a launch, you can get wrecked holding a bunch of new shares because they can get, they can drop fairly quickly. But if you know what to do with them, for example, take advantage of the CZ share farm, or I guess the new bomb farm for the share token, that's likely going to be paying over 100% a day on the first day, just because there's going to be such a small amount of funds in that farm versus what the farm's paying. So, I know a lot of people were upset with CZ about the share price falling, but if you use those shares to their maximum potential, then you gained so much in those first few days, first week or two, that, you should have likely made way more than, what would have been lost with the share price dropping. Obviously there's a million different strategies you could use there. So some would have worked out better than others, and yeah, it's something where, I think it's going to bring good value. I think it's going to increase the price of B share before we do a transition, because once people realize that at 100-to-1 ratio, the new shares are going to guarantee, in my opinion, almost for sure guaranteed start and maintain much higher than 1,500 a share. So essentially this is your chance to get discount shares for the new protocol, which maybe they will hit 20, 25,000. Bomb has a lot, more brand recognition and followers than obviously a new protocol like CZ had at launch. So, CZ went to 25K a share, and it's definitely doable with the new bomb. So anybody have any questions about that, or guys with me? Do you guys have any comments about anything I've said, or?
No, so far so good. I'm really curious to see what the community has to say. I know we had a great discussion yesterday afternoon, but if there's anyone here or in the Discords, they can post in the AMA questions. I will get to those afterwards.
Yeah. So, all right, we got a comment here. So, comment is, I've been thinking about swapping my P-Hub for B-Share to get B-Share V2, taking profit and then getting back into P-Hub before price takes off. This is a terrible strategy. I mean, it's an extremely risky strategy because everything's got to go kind of according to plan. But so right now, P-Hub is lower than what it's been trading at. So and there's not that great of liquidity. So I'm not sure how much you're talking about numbers wise, but I'd say that's probably a pretty bad idea overall. If you want me to go into more details, and let me know. You keep splitting your users. Why? Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean I'm splitting our users? Or if you guys know what he's talking about, let me know.
Just on P-Hub, I got I got the rejection back from CoinGecko because of the liquidity, but they'll recheck that in 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll have CoinGecko listing for P-Hub soon.
All right, cool. So yeah, P-Hub will be, you said on CoinGecko, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay. So in a couple of weeks, I'll check again. So, all right, guys. So yeah, P-Hub, expect that to be on CoinGecko in the next couple of weeks.
Nice. I guess the users, he might be talking about having users on different protocols, different coins now. Personally, I think that it's keeping them within the whole ecosystem, which is going to help it thrive. For sure, in these markets, there are less users than we had. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
All right. So he clarified, but first let me just address this. So got a question. Can you talk about B bond, or is that just as simple as swap the B bond for bond V2? That's a good question. So I think there's only two ways that really make sense. The two ways that make sense to me is either allow swapping B bond for the new BOM primary token at a 1-to-1 ratio. Like, so if you have, 1,000 B bonds, you get 1,000 of the new token. Basically giving you credit for 1.0 peg on the B bond, despite what current peg is at. Or we could do what you suggested and, actually, no. I mean, I guess I could make it so that we're able to mint new bonds without it, burning the new primary token, but I don't think that makes sense. I'd rather start the new protocol fresh and clean with 0 bonds. So likely I would just swap B bonds for, for the new token. So basically a B bond would work the same as BOM for swapping to the new asset, essentially.
All right.
Again, this is just still an idea. If anybody has anything better in mind, then feel free to let me know. Okay, so splitting the users, he was talking about CZ, BOM, P-Hub. So he says, don't have enough dollars for all of this. So, I mean, the purpose is definitely not splitting the users. I mean, the purpose is to have different options available for different risk appetites. Well, I mean, this has been a progressive thing, right? So, CZ was launched to offer a multi-peg algo coin, which we really felt would do well, regardless of market conditions, due to the new mechanics that we introduced. And as well, we pegged CZ BOM to BOM for extra buy pressure and to generate additional revenue to help BOM. So it was all centered around BOM, but at the same time, it was independent from BOM. It's our users' choice if they want to participate in the new protocols or not. Again, if they chose to stay with BOM, there was, well over probably now there's been probably almost $500,000 of buy pressure on BOM that came from CZ directly. Forget about like what was brought indirectly from people that wanted to farm CZ BOM who would have bought BOM for that purpose. But just like, myself, what I've done from revenue received from the protocol, whether it's been through the the Genesis pools, the 1% fee there, or other revenue, prior to PHub launching, where revenue is going to feed through there. A lot of that revenue was going towards buying BOM in the open market. So it was really just there to help BOM. I mean, that's not the only reason it was there, but that was one of the big side effects of it. And as well, it's proven extremely useful because now we know what mechanics work, and I think every CZ mechanic is working. Maybe Master Peg, if you want to jump in and with any feedback on how the different mechanics are working, or ways that you think maybe it could have been improved or changed, I'd love to hear about it. But I mean, from what I've seen, it seems like all the new things that we introduced seem to have positive effects.
So I'll jump in there. I apologize for my mic. I had to open my my sliding doors, so you might be able to hear the beach in the background. So on the balance, everything in CZ is looking extremely positive to me. Our pegs seem to be like the strongest pegs I've seen from any tomb fork to date. So
yeah,
I just want to say that the cells above peg, this may be a few people in our community in this situation where we all helped to bring the peg up from its lows not long after launch. So I would imagine there is a lot of people that are heavily weighted in peg tokens. So we should be prepared for some sales above peg, which is healthy ultimately for the protocol, and it may take some time for people to balance their portfolios so that they're generating yield in a better way than just holding peg tokens.
Well, let's talk about the general stuff about CZ after we talk about the relaunch. But I just wanted to hear specifically about the mechanics of what we've introduced, such as having multiple different peg choices, the boardrooms, having them on 2-hour increments, having a boardroom print every 2 hours, or an epoch rollover every 2 hours. The taxes, this, I guess, kind of just because you're really in the thick of things with the protocol, how do you feel that these changes are working, and is there anything that you would have done differently with what you know now?
Personally, I've been involved in a lot of tomb forks, and this one seems to be a major game changer to me. The multi-pegs, the idea may have seemed like a little bit how's this gonna work? There's a lot of variables that have changed, but from what I'm seeing, it's allowing users to spread their risk among the 4 major BSC assets, which is a major benefit. You don't want to just be tied to one asset. You've also got the USD one if you are concerned about the broader market. It's an absolute game changer in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. I think one big improvement that we need to make, though, is that I think we need to be very clear. Since I've noticed that since we changed the taxes up to 25%, new investment hasn't been coming in as often as I would have liked. And I think maybe part of the problem might be that we're not very clear about when these taxes and burns apply, right? So, it's, in marketing or in website presentation, you always want to make things look better than they really are, or at least look, display it exactly as it is. We're actually doing the opposite here. We're making it look worse than it really is, right? Because if I just arrived here, it'd be what? There's a 10% tax and a 25%, or sorry, basically a 25% tax on this token. But that's not really the truth. That's only on cells, right? So I can buy this, I can farm it, I can, what is this farm paying right now? It's something stupid high, right? Almost 1% a day to farm BNB and get that BNB exposure, right? It's ludicrous how good that is, right? But and you can get involved in that without tax, but we don't make that obvious. So I think that's one big change that we need. That's actually, I think, probably one of the only changes I can even think of right now. But I think we definitely need to be more clear about when these taxes apply. Maybe a heading, kind of like how this says current peg. Maybe this should say cell tax.
That's a really good idea.
That's the winning solution right there. Let me write that down.
The other thing is it could be it could be a discussion we can have in the community about potentially dropping that slightly in the future, as our pegs are holding so strong that once they come above peg, there is some additional pressure on selling, and if we reduce that somewhat, it may allow people to more freely
Yeah, I agree there.
enter or exit.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's going to be some trial and error to figure out what the right tax rate is on underpeg tokens. And for future protocols, we could even explore having different tiers of tax at different pegs. But, I like the simplicity of this, though. And I think, the reason that we jumped from 15 to 25% is like, it appeared that nobody cared that there was a 15% tax they were selling anyways. But I think we may have jumped the gun there because, everything that was going on at the time with Hanford and, with a lot of the tokens dropping value very quickly, I think that, it was basically a mini bank run on the protocol, and people didn't, they probably would have sold regardless, whatever the tax was at, because they thought it was going even lower. Right. So, obviously anybody that's been involved in any of the protocols I've launched knows that, you don't benefit by selling the bottoms, because, we always do everything that we need to do to get things healthy again. So, so for one, don't ever do that if you care about your money. But yeah, no. So I think that, maybe that those sales would have happened regardless what the tax was at, and maybe jumping up to 25 was a little bit premature. Although it's just incredible to look at some of the charts when the token gets down to like a 0.4 peg, which that hasn't happened since we changed the tax. But, when we introduced the 25% tax, there was a token or two at really low peg. I think it was BNB and
like 0.3 or something.
Yeah. A couple of them got pretty low when Hanford dumped everything that he held, and, that scared a lot of other people. But thanks to everyone that sold, I bought a whole bunch at the bottom. So appreciate you guys.
Well, maybe with the BOM V2 launch, if and when that happens, we can try with a 20% tax, seeing as it's a variable that we can adjust, and we have adjusted it on CZ pegs. Like you just said, with great success. We immediately saw the cells stopping and it started going back up. We could test 20, see how that goes.
Yeah, I like 20%. So yeah, I would think I'd be happy to start that off at 20%. Obviously, we can get some feedback from the community, but
yeah,
that could be a nice happy medium between the 15 and 25, and kind of see how that works out, and adjust accordingly after if we need to.
Looping back,
I guess there's no one better to ask than Mr. Master Peg here. I mean, he's the one that's running this protocol. Like, what do you feel about the taxes? Like, do you think they need like an adjustment, or you need to see for longer, or like what's your take on that?
I would like to see us continue how we're going for a bit before we look at changing it. But it's definitely a discussion that I want the community to have.
Not so much about like I don't want to, like, I wasn't really asking like if we should change it, but like what's your gut feeling about 25%? Do you think that that's, like, based on what you've seen, do you think that's a pretty good number, or do you think that's something that probably needs tweaking in the future?
Looking at it from an investor's point of view, I love the burn, the tax not so much. So there's the ratio of burn to tax that's quite important in my opinion, especially new investors looking at the protocol. Obviously, we want to have a healthy treasury that can support our pegs as well. But I like the idea of if people decide to sell under peg, then it burns a bunch of tokens. That mechanic makes a lot of sense in my head.
Okay, actually, so let's, based on a couple of things you said there, actually, I want to clear up a few things about tax. So the burn versus the tax, and actually, before I even get into that, there seems to be a lot of confusion about what the tax is even for, right? So when people say they want a tax on BOM, what that's going to help with is it's going to prevent sells under peg, right? People, for some reason, are thinking the tax is going to be usable to buy back BOM up over peg. It doesn't work like that, right? So if someone, let's take a look at this example here. If someone sells CZ BOM when it's under peg, that tax, if there was one, because it's over peg right now, but if there was a tax, that 10% of that sell would go to a treasury wallet, and now we'd be sitting on a peg token that's under peg, because obviously it only got taxed because it was under peg. We can't do anything with that. We don't sell peg assets under peg. We barely sell peg assets at all. I mean, we need them to be healthy over peg, and we sell in small increments. The automation for that is actually right around the corner. So while it's manual, it hasn't been happening as often as it needs to be happening. But like, we cannot do very much with a peg token that's under peg. So, I mean, at the very best, that's something that, we can wait for that peg token to be healthy, which usually happens pretty quick, especially with taxes like this. And then we can start to slowly, swap out of it for assets that are liquid that, can help the protocol and help peg tokens, or, be applied to PHub reward share. Right. So the tax is definitely 95% of the reason it's there is to, prevent sells under peg, to deter and penalize people who are selling at times that are not ideal times to sell. So just wanted to clarify that a little bit. In addition to that, the tax rate versus the burn rate, because of what I just said, like, we are almost never selling these tokens. I mean, we will never, ever sell them under peg. So a burn versus a tax to the end user, while it might look different, it's almost the same thing, right? A burn is permanently getting rid of the tokens. Us putting them in a protocol wallet that has no intention of selling them unless it's extremely healthy and it's something where we can sell it without anybody noticing because we're doing it numerous times a day in very small amounts. And, while momentum is moving up, all kinds of other factors involved there. The tax is actually beneficial because it's funds that, for one, it's not going to hurt the peg of the token because it's only going to be sold at very specific times when a lot of conditions are met that makes it an ideal time to sell it. And, then it's going to be used for the benefit of the protocol. So, until all of those conditions are met, essentially a tax is almost the same as a burn because those tokens are just taken off the market. You can't buy them. It's in a protocol wallet sitting there. I could pull up some of them just so you guys could see how many taxes have been taken. I think this is where they go. Yeah, like, so 101 BNB worth of taxes, 4,000 CZ bomb worth of taxes, 32,000 CZ EMP worth of taxes, and 17,800 CZ BUSD worth of taxes. And these, they haven't been sold, right? Because the pegs, I've seen the pegs jump up a little bit, but, there's not enough liquidity for me to feel comfortable selling any of those, right? So it's, again, our goals are to protect our investors and, have their best interests in mind. And to me, that means that, we shouldn't be selling peg tokens unless it can be done safely and it can be done in a way that it's not hurting anybody, right? So that makes it very difficult to sell those without automation, because with automation, we can do it, we can run automation 100 times a day and it can sell very small amounts, or it can sell, slightly larger amounts if all the conditions are perfect for a slightly larger sell, right? So that's all I wanted to talk about for taxes. Let's see all the questions I missed.
The other thing is we could possibly be a bit more clear on taxes on LP creation under peg, because there is no taxes on. I mean, that's whitelisted, so you're able to create your LP tokens and farm while under peg without paying any taxes.
What might be a good idea? What if we just had like a tax page? And hear me out. So I know that people on mobile, unless we adjust what mobile users can see, people on mobile can't see the taxes, right? This is what it looks like on mobile. So when you can't see the taxes, that's problematic. So either we need to adjust probably how the mobile look. We've got to show the taxes under here maybe. But also, like, we need to go into detail, just like, what Mr. Peg over here was saying. We need to explain when taxes apply and when they don't apply. And we need to make it simple, very simple. Because just looking at this right now, I just think taxes apply for everything. So for me to farm this right now, I'm going to have to pay a ton of tax, but that's just not the case, right? You can buy the token without tax. You can LP it without tax. You can put it into the farmer, the auto compounder without tax. You're not taxing anything unless you're selling. So
just on that, I have built a couple of kind of lessons in the CZ bootcamp. There is one on tax, which quite simply explains the tax system involved. So anyone wants to have a look at that, I think it's on one of the pinned in CZ.
Okay, maybe if that's mature enough, we can add a link to that on the homepage, or if you need to polish that a little bit more first. Once it's polished up, we could have a link to that boot camp right on the homepage so everybody could see that.
Yeah, I would appreciate if I can get some feedback from the community. Try it out, see what you think. If there's anything that's missed, missed in there, or you want to
feel free to share that in our team channel as well to get some feedback from the team. Or maybe you already did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, so let's get to some questions. You think it's just the market right now at BTC at 20K? I mean, for one, I'll say one thing. Like, I'm not the kind of guy to like say like anything is because of one specific thing. Like, I think that's actually a problem. Not a problem, but it's something that I see constantly in our communities. Is like there'll be like 100 different variables that can affect how something is working, and people will tunnel vision in on one and say this is the reason why things work or don't work, or this is why things work over there and they don't work over here. When there's like hundreds or even thousands of variables at play that all impact how successful a protocol is. Like, I just wanted to get that off my chest a little bit, but when one of them is the market, right? So the market is horrible right now. For us to attract money to DeFi in times like this with what crypto is doing, it is very, very, very difficult to the point where like it's almost debatable if we should even be spending money on ads at times like this. Because it's very likely money that's just getting wasted. People are afraid to get into crypto at these prices. Forget about DeFi, which is higher risk. I feel like we're very well known and trusted and transparent. That I feel like if a new investor could see all of that, people have a very short attention span. If they could see all of that before they lose interest, and if they could somehow get all that information in 10 seconds, we'd probably be able to get a lot more new investors, a lot sooner. But yeah, it's very difficult to attract capital and keep capital around. And, all of a sudden BTC, dumps $1,000 and then, you have people running for the exits and there's not necessarily a lineup of people willing to take their spot. So, it definitely is challenging, but it's also the best time to be building, and it's the best time to, for our community and, our investors to be building their bags up. Right. And, you just want to build your bag for when that rebound comes. So, if we have a healthy protocol, and that's obviously our goal, and that's, I feel CZ is very healthy, and, a bomb relaunch would also be very healthy. That's like the best opportunity that you have to earn an insane APY and be able to build up your bag so that when when BTC makes that 10x that it does off the bottoms in a bull market, you're as well equipped as possible for that. Right. So, I think this is a great time for us to be building and for people to be investing in our protocols, but it's very difficult to get new capital in.
Agreed.
So, hope that makes sense.
I have a couple of good questions in chat here. I also have the AMA questions in Discord that I have a few questions in there I'd like to get to.
Okay, let's get to those right after. I'm going to take care of the comments in the chat for now. 100 B bonds for one share token. Yeah, I don't think that works. Well, I mean, just because like it's, the B shares are at $15 and a B bond is, obtainable for like under $1 right now. So that would dilute the new share tokens way too hard. Would swapping minted peg token from one boardroom to another peg token LP under peg be a bad thing? Would swapping minted peg token to another peg token?
I have some thoughts on this.
What's that?
I have some thoughts on this. So because of the tax system, it makes a lot of sense to buy under peg, right? Because you can be fairly confident that that's returning to peg, in a pretty reasonable frame of time.
Yep.
So if something's above peg, it would seem that it's kind of a no-brainer to sell it for the under peg, which I think is going to keep all four of our pegs pretty stable between the four of them. So as our pegs become stronger and we have growth in our system, I think all four pegs will come over peg at the same time and hopefully hold it all together. So that'll stop a lot of switching from over peg to under peg tokens as well.
Yeah, like so for me personally, like I mean I don't like swapping between assets all that often, but that's just me. But yeah, I mean just in terms of, if you get a boardroom print, obviously it's over peg. If it's high enough over peg that you can sell it without, killing the peg, then yeah, I mean grabbing a token that's under peg is a great strategy because, as it was just said, you know, you can have a very high level of confidence that any of our peg tokens are getting back to peg. And I wish I could say that about the current bomb, but if we go ahead with the relaunch, I'll be able to say that over there too, right? Just because people don't want to lose 25%, they don't want to sell under peg, so you may as well farm the asset, and then once if the token's under peg and you're farming the pair, and you see how much that's making for you, like you probably don't even want to sell it when it's over peg. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know, like when people are exiting their farm positions, it's like where else are you getting almost 1% a day, right? Like so. Anyways.
There was also a bit of a conversation in the bomb chat last night about whales manipulating the pegs, and 25% matters just as much to a whale as it does to a minnow, right? Like whales are not selling under peg because 25% is a lot more value that they'll be losing.
Yeah, I'd say it's even more of a factor for whales. It's not like whales didn't get a lot of money because they said, "Hey, I don't care about losing 25%." No, that's not how a whale got their funds, right? A whale has a big enough position that they say, "Hey, that 25% is going to really hurt me," right? Like, I mean, maybe not hurt their whole financial situation, but if they got a big position, they certainly don't want to take a 25% haircut on it, right?
Agreed.
So let's just finish up these comments in chat. So the taxes is when you're under peg. Yep, that's the only time is when you're under peg and when you're selling. That's it.
Another great reason to make it more clear on the website.
Yeah.
So these questions should be more clear for everyone.
Is ROA contract coming regardless of Bomb V2? It is coming regardless of Bomb V2, but if Bomb V2 is around the corner, it doesn't make sense to build a Bomb V1 asset into the ROI contract. So I'd say let's spend the next day or two really solidifying if we're doing a relaunch and what it's going to look like. Get the vote up, and then as soon as that vote has a passing vote, we can just begin work. It's going to take, I think, the marketing team and the guys that are going to be leading the Bomb Money project more time than it's going to take me to deploy everything. So I'm not sure exactly when a relaunch would be because we want to hype it a lot, obviously, and we want to get a lot of participation in that. So, but yeah, we would likely put the ROI contract on hold until the V2 launch. This guy's rocking 911 and saying 15% burn, no tax. I mean, I'm not sure why people are so against the tax. Like I said, we don't do anything with it unless the token's extremely overpegged, and it would be used just to help the protocol. But all right, we'll take that into consideration. Tax can also eat a chunk of one share staked in the boardroom. Yeah, so that's more like a fee, not a tax. So what he's referring to is, so one of the mechanics that we introduced with CZ is, having 4 boardrooms. If you look at the time until the next epoch, they're all exactly 2 hours apart. So that, for one, we were able to space out the prints on each token. So they're only getting 3 a day instead of 4. So that's less emissions, so less difficulty maintaining peg. But because we have 4 different peg tokens, we have perfect 2-hour gaps between, epoch rollovers. So it keeps a lot of excitement. And it also gives the, some potential game theory there between, like, if you want to start jumping between boardrooms, if they're paying such a high APR that, oh, okay, I thought that said 30,000. I got confused there for a sec. So, you can move between the boardrooms as much as you want, but there is a 2% staking fee and a 2% withdrawal fee. So you are going to, get a little bit of a haircut on your CZ shares when you're staking or unstaking. But if you think one of the boardrooms is going to miss a print or two, and another one's looking strong, I mean, that's you're free to move them between, and but the reason for that tax or for that fee was just I felt that people in Bomb were the second that we don't print, they just pull all their shares out of the boardroom and they just dump them, right? Like, and it's kind of just to you're free to move your shares wherever you want, but we're just gonna take a 2% fee for doing that. I think that's fair because we want to encourage long-term investing. So tax is helpful for sure. I agree. Any mechanics that help us get back to peg is useful for protocol and us as an investor in the end. Yeah, I agree 100%. And like, so for example, like I'll tell you, like for me and CZ, what my positions have looked like and what my actions have looked like is I am very willing to buy a token that's under peg and start farming it. If any, like I basically have no will or desire to ever sell any of the tokens under peg. So it's something where like once more people are on that same page as me, like I mean, I think already is kind of the case. Like we're really not seeing many sales under peg, which is great. Yeah.
Well, I think all the mechanics in play in CZ are helping to cultivate our users and select the users that are here for long term, which further helps out the whole protocol.
Yep. So we got another comment here. I thought tax can also eat a chunk of one's shares staked in the boardroom. These could be burned. Runway could be extended proportionally. Huh. It's not really how it works. The emissions are, yeah, it's not really how that works. I mean, share tokens are something that's in an exact quantity. They cannot be minted. And so I think burning them is probably not the best idea. Yeah. Can we please talk busmpeg when you get a chance? Sure. What do you want to talk about busmpeg? I mean, obviously it's not where we'd like it to be. I've got some ideas of how we can bring that up. It seems like it's, that I'm going to have someone manage BUSM. Actually, I think it might be Diamond. You were saying that you and your team, potentially you guys want to be project leads for BOM money and potentially another smaller aspect of the ecosystem like BUSM.
Yep. We would like to help BUSM get back to its former glory. Essentially, what we're looking for is liquidity. There will be a couple of ways to achieve this. We do have a couple of ideas. We'd be working mostly on BOM money, especially right now with the potential relaunch. Our team would have we'll be having a lot of fun with everyone getting everything ready for that and getting everyone hyped up. But yes, we would like to work on busm as for now, at least. If we do find somebody else to take over and work a bit more full time, that could be done as well. But yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I guess my answer to the question is that like we will have an individual or a team that's managing that aspect of the ecosystem, and sounds like it's definitely going to start off being Diamond and his team. But in the future, perhaps we'll have someone else run it if it's too much for them, or for whatever reason, we might have a dedicated group or person handle that separate from Diamond and his team. But we do plan to get that healthy. We do plan to have other protocols able to supply assets to borrow. We could potentially look at getting an outside investor to invest to, basically buy up BUSM while it's on a discount right now, to provide a bunch of liquidity at 1.0, and then also to have some extra funds to be able to, buy BUSM up if the peg drops.
Yep.
Right. So
I think
that's
there's a lot of potential in there to help the different protocols we'll be having. So I really would love to get it up there.
Your mic seems a little quiet there, Diamond.
Sorry. How about right now?
That sounds better.
Excellent. So yeah, I think that BUSM could help out a lot of different aspects of the protocol. If we had a few different pairs we could use as collateral, that would be amazing. Even right now, it's still really cheap, yet people are still using it. As weird as this sounds, that's kind of a bullish signal. Even selling at a huge discount, I'm not even sure it's worth it anymore at this point. People still think it is. So I think that shows what it could be. But we do have some work to get it back to peg. One of the next.
Liquidity is so low on it. I would not take very much money at all to get it to peg.
Probably not. Which brings me to one of the questions in the chat. Two questions down. BUSM could be a great candidate as a peg token. I think so as well. I wanted to talk to Aaron about it. There might be good reasons why not. I think we could have a discussion about it, but it could help incentivize people having it, especially right now at a cheap discount. I think it'd be fantastic.
Let's go through in order here. So
great.
anything on the nodes for CZ. There's like one. I mean, I can let Master Peg kind of answer this a little bit, but so the challenge there is that we don't want to have a node for each of the peg tokens. So we're thinking that the best solution would be to have like a balancer V2, like with Axie, multi-peg token pool, and have that be what we use for the nodes. So something like what we used for the bomb and the B-share maxis in the past. You can create a pool here with so you can put as many assets as you want here. So we could put all 4 peg tokens here. We could add like a non-peg token like BTCB or BNB, just so that there's liquidity that can be traded between the different tokens. Or we could put the share token in there as well, and then we could do this and probably not incentivize it with CZ share rewards. Like we wouldn't put this into a farm like we did on Bomb, but this would just be what you needed to kind of get into the nodes, and that if or when we implement the ROI contract for CZ, we could also use the same thing for that. So that's what we're thinking of. But because of the extra complexity there and figuring out how to best do that, that's why that hasn't happened yet. So we've kind of already touched on this. BUSM could be a great candidate as a peg token. Yes and no. I'll give my thoughts on that in a sec. Actually, I guess I'll talk about it right now. So when we are picking a token to peg to, there's a bunch of factors we have to look at. One, there's 2 major ones actually. One is like how many people want exposure to the peg token, because ultimately that's what's going to drive someone to invest, right? So let's look at CZ, BNB. Personally, I think I'm very bullish on BNB. I think BNB is going to, go back to all-time highs soon. And, I love BTC. I like BTC more, but I also like BNB as a bit more of a speculative one. So that's something that I'm very happy parking my funds there, because I want the BNB exposure and the farm pays well. The other thing that, the other factor is how, pegging to a token can help other aspects of our ecosystem, which obviously is the one that applies to BUSM. BUSM could definitely get a lot more buy pressure, a lot more interest around it if we peg to it. But the ultimate goal for the protocols is to have outside investors buying into our farms, which keeps them above peg, which allows people to sell their boardroom rewards without dropping peg. And you got to think, well, if we peg to BUSM, how many new investors are going to want to farm a BUSM, peg BUSM asset? Probably the answer to that is next to zero. Right. So as great as it sounds, and as much as if we tunnel vision on just the pros and forget about all the cons, it sounds great. Right. But if you go back to, well, this is going to turn almost any outside investor off of investing into that LP, well, it breaks everything then. Right. So as much as I would love to peg to BUSM, and it would be very beneficial in a lot of ways, if we can't get investors to invest in it, it serves zero purpose, basically. So something we can still talk about, but just that's how I feel about it at the moment.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks. I didn't want to bring it up on live, but since somebody else asked, figured.
Oh no, hey, we can talk about anything on the live stream. Again, I'm 100% transparent. Any of the toughest questions out there, this is the time to ask them, because you can see I don't prepare my responses. I'll tell you how it is, right? So just nothing's off limits. I wanted to get into this and trying to make passive income of $600 a week. Is there any strategy out there? Yeah, dude, that's like way too generic of a question. It really depends on how much your initial is, what your risk tolerance is. Like, there's just so many variables at play that, for one, we can't even really give financial advice. I could just tell you what maybe I would have done in that situation, but again, without knowing a lot of other factors, I can't even give you advice that I'd feel comfortable giving you. So, to make a passive income of $100 a day, approximately, like, you need to have a sizable chunk up front or do something super risky. So,
Yep.
what is the total supply of BUSM? Right now, the supply is, I think, around 1.6 million, but we can mint them as they're needed. So it works on a completely different system to a seniorage protocol. It's strictly based on supply and demand, and when people need to pay back their loans that they've taken to borrow BUSM, they buy it. Typically, when people, when they borrow it, they want to sell it to get some other asset. So, essentially the circulating supply is whatever has been borrowed, and that's all over collateralized. So, if $1 million of BUSM has been borrowed, there's at very minimum, like, approximately 1.2 million of collateral tied up. That's not exact because it works, the 20% works the other way around. But so there will never be BUSM in circulation that doesn't have over collateralized XBOM in place, tying it up, if that makes sense. But there's no total there's no limit to how many can be in circulation, because as long as people keep putting up all that collateral, they can keep borrowing. Unless the contract runs dry, then I just have to refill it, which I can do 150,000 per day if needed. How about we use some new token like SafeMoon or some meme tokens? Even though they're shit tokens, they got good support on BSC. So this is a big discussion in itself, is like, what tokens do we peg to, right? We had a couple of great suggestions yesterday, and we don't necessarily have to have 4 peg tokens. We could have 3, we could have 8, we can do whatever we want. Probably 4 makes a lot of sense though. So actually, I'm going to take a break to go to the washroom in a second, but first I'm going to let you guys talk about this, maybe with the community. I'm just going to give the ones that I'm thinking out of the gate, and you guys can feel free to talk about this. But so obviously, BOM is pegging to BTCB.
Yep.
Let's make things a little bit bigger. So that's obvious. Then I'm thinking, so there's 2 of them that I really like. Okay, so the one that I personally really like, and I'd really love to see, would be DOT. Which spoke DOT, for anyone that doesn't know. The reason for that is that DOT, its main chain is what is it? They call it, it's the relay chain, I believe it's called. So basically, their chain interconnects other chains, and it's not an Ethereum EVM compatible chain. So we'd never be able to natively have, I shouldn't say never, but I don't foresee any time in the future where we'd be able to have a native protocol on any chain that has native access to DOT. So BSC, it's like the wrap DOT on BSC is one of the top 10 tokens for market cap. So DOT is huge on BSC. So I personally like DOT. I want exposure to DOT. DOT's huge on BSC. I think everything adds up to make this an excellent choice for a second peg. And I also really like the Beefy token.
Your audio's electronic.
It's choppy, electronic, and fast.
Mine?
Yep.
Okay. Not sure why. Maybe my internet's.
Maybe.
Is it better now? I just put my mic closer.
No, it's a little fast. We can hear you, but something's off.
Okay. Maybe I'll reconnect. If you guys want to just entertain while I do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I gotta go to the washroom too, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes, but I'll just reconnect.
Yep, he's gonna reconnect. Got lucky. We lost his. Obviously. So DOT. I was looking at the charts too. I think that's a good strong contender, especially in these markets. I believe we should be taking coins that are in top at least top 20.
And have utility.
Yeah, that too. Have a good reason for people to want them. Some of them will be we won't be able to use because we will be starting CZ forks on different chains. So AVAX, could have been a good choice, but if we're starting a CZ fork on Avalanche, obviously that would probably be one of the tokens over there. So we can't use that on our bomb D2 here.
Is my mic better? Real quick
Yes,
before I
it
go?
is.
Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna step out for a second while I go to the washroom.
Yep.
I just want to take this opportunity to do a shout out to our mod team on CZ, doing a great job. We've had literally hundreds of new entrants into the Telegram, especially, and a large percentage of them are there for one reason. So be generous with the bans. We want to protect our community from scammers, and yeah, just want to say you guys are doing a really good job there.
Yeah, props.
Yeah, CZ's killing it. Let's keep going.
Yeah. What about anybody else have any other ideas? Solana. Not sure if maybe there will be maybe a CZ fork over there. ADA could also be another contender. Not as much love these days. Well, the markets aren't helping, obviously, but that could definitely be a contender. We'll have more talks about it once we have a specific guideline on how the migration is going to happen. We'll be able to pass a vote because we definitely want everyone to understand what we're getting into. So Aaron's going to be building up kind of a guide on just to let people know how it's going to work. So people can agree or disagree to something very specific. That could be a problem. Actually, that's not a problem. If it's not EVM compatible, that could make it a better contender. We'll have to see how about add new peg tokens if it makes sense. And when we reach like every 1-2 million TVL, highest voted token, add the highest voted token to the system. That could be a good idea. Yeah. Hey, Aaron.
Hey.
You're back. So we were talking about different peg tokens. ADA could be a possibility. It is in the top 10. I think we're probably looking for tokens that are in the top 10, 20, and hopefully have high utility. Yep.
Yeah. So, like my criteria. Again, I missed what you guys would have just said, so maybe if I'm repeating what you said, but
we didn't go too much into it.
Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
When Pulse launch? How cool would a multi-peg system be there? You do
Where?
X, Pulse X, Pulse when it eventually launches.
Yep.
I haven't read too much about that. Well, just briefly, but I mean, it does sound kind of crazy, just forking Ethereum and just, yeah, anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
So my main criteria is, for one, like having the token be something that people want exposure to. Beefy works very similar to P-Hub in that their main, well, I mean, for one, it's the revenue protocol, or the revenue token for the protocol. So all of their revenue across all chains is buying back Beefy. So Beefy is just like Yearn Finance, just like P-Hub. The ultimate goal is just to get the token as valuable as possible, more so than like pay APR on the token for staking it. So having tokens like this be peg tokens is quite great because you get exposure to the asset, and the asset's main goal is just to increase in value. So to be able to farm that at a really high APR and get that upside exposure, that those tokens are basically there just for value appreciation, I think that makes a ton of sense. My other criteria, not really criteria, but would be really nice, would be to have a partner protocol. I'm not sure if this makes sense for BSC, what I'm about to say, but I'd really like to have like a DEX partner So like, for example, for our
Mhm.
Phantom protocol, I'd love to partner with either Spirit or Spooky,
Yep, that'd be awesome.
and peg to their token as one of our pegs. On Avalanche, something like Trader Joe or something.
Yep.
On BSC, I think everybody wants us to keep using PancakeSwap, and I think getting a partnership with them is next to impossible. So probably not going to happen on BSC, but for other chains, that's definitely going to be something that I want to see as one of the pegs. I mean, in fact, I'd like a lot of the pegs to be, partnerships with other protocols so that they can cross promote us. And I think that'd be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Having said that, I mean, an option here could be PHub.
I like that
again,
one.
as a token that's meant to just appreciate in value, and it will appreciate in value. Even with constant sells, it'll appreciate in value because there'll be so many buybacks on it. And there can't be constant sells because the token is quite limited in quantity. And I hold so many of them that the other holders only have so many. So, I mean, if they want to sell constantly, I guess I'm going to own them all eventually. But, but yeah,
I think already with all the different protocols, once they're launched, they're going to be giving their dev allocations to the PHub holders, adding an extra level of utility, aka farming it in the new Bomb V2 ecosystem. I think that would make it a powerhouse.
Yeah.
How many tokens have an external revenue source?
Yeah. Like, I mean, PHub, like, just to talk about that super quick, like, massive external revenue source. This is not a Ponzi. PHub gets revenue from other protocols. It buys back PHub. This is what happens, right? There's only 10,000. And of that, 3,500 of them are already in a 12-month vesting period. 2,500 for me, 1,000 for marketing and other expenses related to PHub and the whole ecosystem. So 3,500 of them are just locked away right now. Well, they're slowly getting released. I think I own a big chunk of them myself already. So there's really not that many out there. So as soon as those buybacks start, the price is going to move up so quick. I mean, it's going to get over 10 grand before you know it. Not financial advice, but I can factually say that's going to happen.
Well, we were looking at Solana as well. I'm not sure if it's EVM compatible, if we can launch a fork on it.
I've never looked into Solana, really. Is Solana, are they EVM compatible?
Somebody in the chat said no. If they're not, it might be a good contender for Bomb. If it is, we would obviously put it on the CZ forks, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so if it's anything that's EVM compatible, I'd rather just launch a chain on their network or launch a protocol on their chain.
Make more sense.
But that's why DOT worked so well here for me, and plus I like DOT a lot, so I want exposure to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, so what were some of the other suggestions? Well, actually, let's go over these questions real quick just to get them out of the way. Oh yeah, so we already answered this one. So for meme coins, I think that if there's demand for it, I think we could launch a protocol that was strictly pegged to meme coins. Semi for fun or just for people that are interested in those types of coins. But I think that for our core protocol, I think we got to stay with, ones that people really want exposure to, like serious investors. I mean, I'm not saying serious investors don't dabble in meme coins, but I don't think that's their main target. It's better for BUSM to be just a stable coin than a peg token. They're two very different things. And not sure what you're getting at there, but basically every stable coin is a peg token. They just use different mechanisms to maintain peg.
That was posted earlier when we were talking about BUSM being one of the tokens in the new Bomb. I think they're just agreeing that we should just keep it as it is, find other ways to get liquidity, not have it as a peg token on our.
Yeah, but I want to get to the underlying logic and reasoning behind that, because for transparency, I like to give the reasons why we do the things we do or say the things that we say. So I mean, the main reason why we wouldn't why I would agree with you to not use it for both, I mean, for lack of a better way to explain that, is that I don't think it's something that outside investors are going to want to jump into because they're dying to get BUSM exposure, right? That is not going to make a great peg token on a protocol for that purpose. I think in order to get it more liquidity on BUSM and to get peg higher towards its 1.0, I think it would really help in that regard. But it would not be one that people are really wanting to dive into, I think, on the new protocol. Thanks for the explanation. Makes sense. Anytime. Do you really think it's possible to have a 0% back stablecoin? Okay, man, like, can you read the docs maybe before asking some of these questions? Like, I think I just said it's over collateralized, right? Like, you can only borrow BUSM if you have XBOM locked up. And if you have $1,000 of XBOM locked up, you can borrow up to 80 BUSM. And with BUSM's current peg, that means you're borrowing like, 15 cents worth of BUSM for every dollar of XBOM that's locked. So we're not 0% collateralized. We're, with the current peg, we're like, 10x collateralized, right? Quite the opposite. Do you expect relaunch vote to pass, and is vote in XBOM or PHub? I really hope that the vote passes. I won't vote myself. I have too much voting power. So I would sway the vote with whatever I voted on. So I'm not going to vote in any of this. But I do really hope that it passes. And that's a good question you bring up, with XBOM or PHub. I think this should be an XBOM vote, just because it really impacts the current BOM holders and participants. So as much as it is like a big ecosystem decision, it's even more so a BOM asset holder decision. So I think we've got to stick with the BOM voting for this. Unless you have a system with two tokens like Luna UST, Deuce DAI, in that case, these two are uncollateralized as far as I know. Okay, not sure how to respond to that. You lag. Well, that must have been when I had audio issues.
Yep.
What about Sol as a peg token? It's a possibility. Let's put. So again, any potential peg that we do it needs to have a lot of interest in people that want exposure to it, and or has a partnership potential with the protocol whose token this is, because both of those things would drive a lot of new investment into that farm. So that Sol could definitely hit those criteria, not the partnership one necessarily, but if people want a lot of exposure to that, if a lot of people want exposure to that, it'd be a great one to use. ADA. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how many people want exposure to that. I'm not too into it, but if that's a popular one, then yeah, it's definitely another possibility.
I'm not particularly into this, but XRP could be something interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, these are all tokens that I don't really care for, but yeah, I mean, if that's not really what matters, what I care for. It matters what people want exposure to. So,
I mean, I like the idea of being exposed to this court case. I'm not at the moment, but I kind of follow what's going on with the court case. So.
Okay, let's get some more questions out of the way here. By the way, in Solana, there is not a lot of tomb forks. It's like one or two. It must be EVM compatible if there's tomb forks there.
Quick read up says there's a emulator that can help Neon EVM to help kind of interact to have EVM compatible code work on it. So a workaround, but works.
How about a hex peg? Hey, like, listen, once we launch, I'm really pumped to launch on ETH. I know a lot of people are scared of the fees. For one, the fees are actually quite low right now, just because of the Ethereum price and just lack of activity on the network. Like, when you were paying 300 gas before, like now it's usually in the 20 range. And that 300 gas before was at a $4,000 Ethereum. Now you're paying 20 or 30 at $1,000 Ethereum. So fees are not nearly as bad as they used to be. And soon, with the merge, I think fees are going to come down quite a bit. So, our ETH peg our ETH launch we'll aim to do it on a larger scale also, just so that, we're going to launch likely before the merge so that the fees are less of a factor. And what I mean by bigger scales, I think that we can partner with massive protocols on the ETH network. And we can, everything that we do on our other chains, we could do probably 5 or 10 times bigger, meaning that like our Genesis farms could probably attract 10 times more money, and they could probably give out 10 times more tokens, for example. So I think, just upping the scale of everything just because of all the extra, funds that are on Ethereum mainnet and the size of some of the protocols that we could partner with, I think, we could do that up big. And Hex is, we could definitely look into a Hex peg. P Hubby, let's go. Yes, P Hub. So BUSM can only come circulation by having XBOM. I mean, BUSM, like to enter circulation, yes, you have to borrow it against XBOM.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, haven't gone through hiring process yet. Is there anyone I can talk to? That's my bad, man. I just got a million things that I'm doing at the same time, and I just haven't really gotten around to going through and officially hiring everyone that I want to hire. And that's just my fault on that. I've really delayed on the hiring process, although I should really prioritize that, because then I wouldn't have so much on my plate after I hired a bunch of people.
Chicken or the egg.
So anybody that has given me an application, if you haven't heard back from me, it's not because I picked somebody else, it's because I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I will be responding to everybody with either I want to take it one step further with an interview for some of the higher positions, or anyone that I've expressed interest in hiring. I just haven't gotten around to making it official yet, so my apologies there. So back to our peg tokens of choice. I think we have some solid options here. I know. I just haven't. So he said it's just for mod. So yeah, we'll get all that taken care of. But even the mod positions, like I haven't finalized like everything related to that yet. So, but yeah, I mean, I've officially taken you on. So like you are hired. I just haven't given you the documentation and all that stuff and access to our secret stuff. So I think that's pretty much everything related to the potential relaunch, unless I forgot anything.
I do have some questions on the Discord. They don't actually pertain to the relaunch, but
Okay, that's
there
fine.
are some questions. I can read them away.
Go for it.
Is there a way for us to revise our node lottery system? Because even if the ROI contract is a hit, the current nodes can be a great complement to securing liquidity for BOM BTC. Specifically, can we revise from weekly to a daily lottery?
For the nodes?
Yeah. There's a couple follow-ups, but we'll go one at a time, or else, yeah.
Oh, I think I read this question. Like, okay, for one, like the lottery has to have a prize that's worth winning, or else people aren't going to compete for it. The prize has to come from somewhere. I think that I'm familiar with the question that you're reading off.
Yep.
I think there's some confusion from the question asker that like the node lottery is something that we based off what Grape was doing. They're doing it once a week and they're having good success with that. I think the question asker in this case was confusing some like detonator type features with nodes when, we're for the ROI contract, we're looking at a lot of different contracts and a lot of different protocols and seeing what has been working for each of them. And we're kind of taking the best from each of them. That is separate from nodes. Nodes, Grape is using them with some good success. They have a once a week lottery. It's working for them. That's what we're going to do. 15 B shares is a pretty big prize. Well, it's 30 B shares a week.
Yep.
If we were to do daily rewards or daily lotteries, we don't have an unlimited supply of B shares. I mean, that's already taken a big chunk of the allocation of B shares that the protocol gets on a monthly basis, right? So we can't have daily lotteries and have a prize that's, anybody would care about winning. So that can't really happen.
Agreed. Follow up. I think you kind of answered this, but can we implement lottery for BOM nodes as BOM and BTC LP nodes? Then the winnings will just be deposited back into their own locked contract.
No, again, it's confusing the two different things, right? Like that's not how, like we can't we can't take a B share reward and then deposit it as a node for a user. That it just, the contract doesn't allow that, and it doesn't really make sense.
Okay. I noticed that as we introduce new projects, our liquidity just gets cut across the BOM ecosystem. How can this be addressed forward? Because the lower the liquidity means more volatile prices during buys and sells. As we OG BOM investors are getting hurt every time a protocol is added to the ecosystem.
Like, I'm gonna go back to saying, like, it seems that everybody has extreme tunnel vision, that they're like saying one thing that happened is the cause of something else when there's thousands or millions of variables at play, right? Take off the tunnel vision, take off the glasses, look at the whole picture, right? Look at the markets, right? Any project, regardless, if they weren't launching new stuff, they're gonna have less liquidity now. Like, how can that factor just be completely ignored, right? Like,
I agree.
I don't even know where to get started with this one, but like, you know, every new addition has been brought in to create more value for BOM and for our whole community. You know, people that aren't interested in BOM because they don't want BTC exposure, well, now we got something else for them, and the revenue is going to all help the entire ecosystem, right? So it's,
well, that if you're spreading to something else than BOM, you're still helping to keep up the share token at a higher price if you're farming, and that will help indirectly BOM. I think it's a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, we can never say, like, you know, when there's thousands of variables that impact how well something's doing, how much liquidity is on something, you know, to say like it's because we added an extra protocol, like,
yeah,
you can't just break it down to one thing causing this, right? It's
agreed.
It happens all the time, right? But you know, it's, again, that's why we're running the protocols, because we can see the bigger picture. But you know, it is a bit frustrating, I guess, to hear these things over and over and over again, where this one thing is causing something major that is impacted by thousands of things. So
yep, you did touch on that earlier.
Yeah.
Question for Master Peg. Can we market CZ pegs to YouTubers? CZ is one of the protocols that have been pegging since the start, and nobody's covering this. This might bring new investors into CZ, and who knows, maybe even BOM.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, speaking of that, I have to fund the advertising account. I just remembered, but we've been running extensive banner ads. Like, I'm spending a ton of money on banner ads for CZ. Although we probably need to revise them, since it says 5% plus daily. So that was from a little bit earlier on. But yeah, no, we are marketing quite heavily, and we can continue. Although I think they've been stopped for a day now because I forgot to fund the account. Because I mean, we're spending a lot on ads. I just funded them not that long ago with, you know, I think almost 10 grand, and they're dry again. So
nice.
I think one thing maybe is we just need to make it so that, you know, things are more obvious to people when they visit the site, or like when we do that marketing, we do those banner ads, we got to make it, you know, we should probably say some of those things that was just said in the question, right? Like, you know, we have 4 tokens that are either at peg or very close to peg, and we just launched. That's unheard of for a new Tomb Fork, right? And I know, like, there's a lot of different reasons for that success, but that's definitely not what the average Tomb Fork user would expect to see after a month or 2 of launch. So
in these markets,
yeah.
Just saying. Last question: are you doing an airdrop campaigns? Don't think so. I'm not sure what this pertains to, but I'll go with no.
Yeah, not any airdrops planned that I'm aware of.
Just on that last question, I have some thoughts on YouTubers, right? So
yeah.
If you're a YouTuber and kind of don't want you making a video unless you've actually used the protocol and understand how it works. So like influencers that take money to shill stuff is not really the direction I like to see heading. And if you're a YouTuber, or even if you're not, right, like you're in our community and you want to talk about your experience in our protocols, like there's a big opportunity where if you started making content, we have a whole community to back you, to push the algorithms to, you know, if you're making good content for our protocols, you will probably have an easy launch into, I guess, the world of YouTube content creation. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to try and like facilitate that for anyone that is able to make exciting content. So yeah, get in touch with me if you are interested in something like that.
Yep. All right. So not sure what else there is to discuss. We've already almost gone an hour and a half, which is longer than we like to go. Try to keep them short and sweet, but let's see what comment we got here. We should definitely partner with at least one peg contender token. Partnerships bring more genuine eyes on the whole ecosystem. Yeah, I agree. Right. I think this is one of, like, when I had the idea, like before P-Hub, to launch, a multi-peg protocol like CZ on numerous chains, like that was, I think even the better idea than that was to seek out partnerships on those other chains and, get them to, give us exposure, do cross promotion of different things. And really for them to just, partners. So partners benefit because we give them additional utility for their token, and we give their users something where they can use that token to earn high yields, right? So it's really beneficial for these partners. So that's why I feel like on ETH, especially where there's all these monster-sized protocols that are worth billions of dollars, I think if we're persistent and we reach out to all of them, we'll get a couple bites from those massive protocols. I mean, and that could just be, our ETH fork could easily blow up to, multiple hundreds of millions TVL, like almost instantly, if we did something like that. So, yeah, definitely. I hugely value partnerships for the peg tokens. But I mean, I think that out of these, I think the two that I want for sure, well, we obviously have to have Bomb. I really like Dot here. I like both of these.
You're not sure.
They're kind of similar though. P-Hub, buy pressure on P-Hub to farm would be pretty cool, but I think P-Hub is going to have no problem appreciating in value regardless. But again, this gives people an additional use case for their P-Hub, because now they have, it doesn't really matter if you like single stake your P-Hub in the P-Hub Maxi, like it's better than just sitting in your wallet, but the main draw is not a massive APR there. It's the token value appreciation from all the buybacks. So I think having that in a peg farm with, our new peg token, whatever it's called, like P-Hub, or whatever it's going to be called.
Mm-hmm. You're not sharing, by the way.
Oh, oops. My mistake. How do I add that? Oh, I'm in the wrong view. That's why. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. So Dot Bomb. So yeah, it could be like Bomb, P-Hub, or whatever we call that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would work pretty well. As much as I like Beefy, I like P-Hub a lot better in terms of upside potential, and obviously it's our own token. So maybe that makes more sense than Beefy. Yeah, I don't know. Let's figure this out, and once we figure all the details out, let's put a vote together.
Yeah.
Actually, like, we should really end the stream pretty soon because it's been going on forever. Yeah. But if anybody has any input on, any of the variables or any of the different decisions that we're going to be making related to a relaunch, not many better times than now to talk about it. Just because I do want to get that vote up, and I do want to have details in the vote so people know what's going to happen if a yes vote gets passed. So the details need to be figured out now. Oh, I got a good question here. How much will the Bomb relaunch delay new CZ-like platform on the next chain? You said code for V2 was easy, but marketing might take some time. Yeah, I mean, this kind of applies to all the launches. Like, to be honest, now that I have the CZ code and I have deploy scripts for everything, it really doesn't take me long at all to launch on a new chain or to do a Bomb V2 launch. But the bigger challenge is not but for Bomb, we already have the team. For other launches, we need to build up the team to manage it and to lead it and all that. And marketing has to do their thing too. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think the bigger thing is, like you said, is marketing, right? So marketing needs time to prepare, to, raise awareness. I don't think it's going to really delay launches on other chains, because I feel like I'm going to what I want to do is I want to have the code ready, have everything ready, have the site ready, but then potentially have the Genesis pool start. Like, let's just say I did everything today. I'm not going to do everything today, but let's just say I had all three, like, the BOM relaunch and 2 more CZ-like platforms on other chains. We would stagger the start of them. Well, actually, let's take BOM relaunch out of this equation. But for the 2 other CZ-like chains or protocols on other chains, let's say we launched them today, we'd have maybe one with the Genesis starting in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. We'd probably have Genesis on the other one starting like, in 3-4 weeks, something like that. Or whatever the market, the marketing team's a lot more experienced in this kind of thing than me. So I would go with whatever they suggest in terms of launch dates. But this really comes down to how fast marketing can raise awareness, not really on me, because I've launched this before and it's down to a science for me now. So it doesn't take very long. So I hope that answered the question. But I mean, just to give you the short answer, I don't think it's going to delay it much, if at all.
Aaron, I've got a question for you, mate.
Yep.
What kind of assets would we use as Genesis pool to enter the Genesis pools, and how would using different assets or different mix of assets affect our current protocols?
So for which protocol are you talking about? Like Genesis for which?
So a new CZ4 on another chain.
Okay, so good question. I mean, we can really, like, the most basic thing to do would just be to use a bunch of different like popular assets on that chain. We could cross-chain some of the tokens from BSC, like so that they're bridgeable, and then have those be usable in Genesis. That would allow, obviously buy pressure on some of those tokens that are on BSC.
And it might allow like current holders of our ecosystem to enter the Genesis blocks without selling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we can, we can look into like putting BOM or maybe PHub or I don't know. I'm open to suggestions for cross-chain tokens, but let's talk about that a bit more in the future, just because this AMA is getting a bit long. Can we expect a vote for relaunch today, and which token holders will get the option to vote? So what will happen? I don't know if we'll do the vote today because there's a lot to figure out. If we can figure it all out quickly, then we could potentially see a vote today. Although the vote will definitely have a 24-hour, grace period before voting starts, and then maybe we'll even make it more than a 24-hour vote because it's a pretty major one. Although 24 hours should do the trick. So it seems like it's going to be XBOM holders that will get the option to vote. And it's going to be XBOM holders from the second that I create the vote. It does a snapshot of XBOM holders. So buying BOM for XBOM after I've already made the vote is not going to increase your vote power. So anyone who wants a say on, on the relaunch should definitely hold XBOM right now. Either in, as deposited in busm.money or in their wallet. That's who will get to vote. I think at the very latest, we'll probably launch the vote tomorrow. I don't see it taking any longer than that to get all the details worked out.
Nice.
But I mean, I was kind of hoping for more of a discussion about the details or about concerns about the details. But I guess a lot of that was addressed like over text in the communities. In terms of like the B share swap at 100-to-1 ratio and, other things that people were concerned about. But we can always, answer questions next week or in the communities later on today. So if anybody has any questions before we finish up, feel free to post them now, or otherwise I think we will conclude. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. Sorry that it went on for so long. I know everyone's busy, so didn't mean to take over 90 minutes of your time, but really appreciate those that stuck around to the end. And let's get a BOM vote going and see what happens. And I'm really excited for what will happen if we get a pass on that vote. And I think
so am I.
I think everyone's going to be really happy with the results. Not to skew the votes, but I think it's a really positive thing. But I won't be voting, like I said. So yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing real quick. We do have a special guest Friday for our Twitter space. So our Twitter spaces are at, are on Twitter Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we have a special guest. Midas Capital is going to be joining us. A couple guys from their team are going to come on, and yeah, it's going to be a big one. So make sure you don't miss that, guys. And be sure to like and subscribe to our channels, and we will catch you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.